Sophie Bennett had been Marco DeLuca's assistant for 11 months, and in that time, she'd perfected the art of being professionally invisible. It wasn't hard. Sophie was naturally quiet, the kind of person who spoke only when necessary, who blended into backgrounds at parties, who'd spent most of her life being told she was too shy, or too reserved, or needs to come out of her shell. She liked her shell. It was safe there, predictable. No one expected anything from her except competence and efficiency, both of which she could deliver without having to engage in the kind of small talk and social performance that left her exhausted. Her mother called it social anxiety. Her college roommate had called it Sophie's hermit tendencies. Her therapist, back when she'd had one, had called it a perfectly normal introverted personality that society incorrectly pathologizes. Whatever it was, it meant Sophie was excellent at her job precisely because she didn't need attention or validation. She showed up, did exceptional work, and went home. No drama, no politics, no complicated office relationships. Well, except for one. Working for Marco DeLuca required a very sturdy shell, because Marco was the kind of man who commanded attention without asking for it. 41. Intimidatingly handsome, with the kind of presence that made boardrooms go quiet and competitors nervous. He ran what was officially called DeLuca Logistics, a shipping and distribution company with offices in 6 cities. What it actually was, Sophie had learned not to ask about too specifically. She knew there were shipments that didn't appear on manifests, meetings that weren't on his calendar, phone calls he took in Italian that made his expression go hard and dangerous. She also knew he was unfailingly professional with her, polite, respectful, never crossing lines. He said good morning every day. He remembered she took her coffee with cream and sugar. When she'd been sick last month, he'd sent her home early with strict orders to rest. And Sophie had been harboring a completely inappropriate, absolutely hopeless crush on him for approximately 10 months and 3 weeks. Not that she'd ever do anything about it. Sophie didn't do things. She was the assistant who arrived early, left late, kept perfect records, and never caused problems. She was efficient, organized, and completely forgettable, which was why tonight was so wildly out of character. Her college friend Bree had been visiting from New York. They'd gone to dinner at a trendy spot in Back Bay, Sophie's choice, somewhere quiet where they could actually talk. And Bree had spent most of the meal complaining about her recent breakup with a finance guy who'd turned out to be married. "I should have known," Bree had said over her second glass of wine. The signs were all there. Never available on weekends, vague about his living situation, always paid cash. But I ignored it because he was hot and successful, and I thought maybe I'd finally found someone worth keeping. "I'm sorry," Sophie had said, meaning it. "Don't be. I'm better off. At least I found out after 3 months instead of 3 years. Bree had studied Sophie across the table. "You know what your problem is? I have a feeling you're about to tell me. You're too careful. You spend so much time avoiding potential disasters that you never take any risks. When's the last time you did something spontaneous?" "I don't do spontaneous." "Exactly the problem. You're 24, Soph. You should be having adventures, not going home from work every night to watch Netflix alone." "I like Netflix. Netflix doesn't judge me or expect me to be someone I'm not." "I'm not saying don't like Netflix. I'm saying also like other things, like dating. When's the last time you went on a date?" Sophie had gone quiet, focusing very intently on her pasta. Bree had groaned. "Don't tell me it's been over a year." 14 months. "Sophie, that's tragic. You're beautiful and smart and funny. When you let yourself be funny, and you're wasting it sitting home alone every night, what about that hot boss you're always talking about?" "I don't talk about him." "You mentioned him exactly 17 times at dinner tonight. I counted." "Marco says," Marco thinks. "Marco wants. You're clearly into him." Sophie's face had gone hot. "I am not. He's my boss. That would be completely inappropriate. But you want to? Bree, you're blushing. Oh my God, you're totally into your Mafia boss. He's not Mafia, he's... Sophie had stopped, lowered her voice. Okay, he might be a little bit Mafia, or a lot bit Mafia. But that's not the point. The point is nothing can happen. I'm his assistant. I'm professional. I keep boundaries. Boundaries are boring. Life is short. You should drunk text him. Absolutely not. Come on. Just something flirty. See what happens. What's the worst that could happen? I lose my job, die of embarrassment, and have to move back to Vermont to live with my mother and her 7 cats. Your mother has 7 cats? She will by the time I show up on her doorstep unemployed because I drunk texted my Mafia boss. Bree had laughed so hard she'd nearly choked on her wine. Okay, fine. Don't text him. But you need to do something, Sophie. You can't spend the rest of your life being too scared to go after what you want. After dinner, they'd come back to Sophie's small apartment, and Bree had produced 2 bottles of wine with the declaration that they were having a real girls' night for once. Sophie rarely drank. Maybe a glass of wine at dinner occasionally, half a beer at office parties that she left early from anyway. But Bree was persuasive. The wine was good, and Sophie had somehow ended up on her third glass, while Bree regaled her with increasingly wild stories about her dating adventures in Manhattan. You need to loosen up, Bree had said, topping off Sophie's glass. Live a little. Take some risks. When's the last time you did something spontaneous? I don't do spontaneous. Exactly the problem. You're 24, Soph. You should be having adventures, not going home from work every night to watch Netflix alone. I like Netflix. I'm not saying don't like Netflix. I'm saying also like other things. Like dating. When's the last time you went on a date? Sophie had gone quiet, and Bree had groaned. Don't tell me it's been over a year. 14 months. Sophie, that's tragic. What about that hot boss you're always talking about? I don't talk about him. You mentioned him exactly 17 times at dinner. Marco says, Marco thinks, Marco wants. Bree grinned. You're into him. I am not. He's my boss. That would be completely inappropriate. But you want to. Bree, you're blushing. Oh my God, you're totally into your Mafia boss. He's not Mafia, he's... Sophie stopped. Okay, he might be a little bit Mafia, but that's not the point. The point is nothing can happen. I'm his assistant. I'm professional. I keep boundaries. Boundaries are boring. You should drunk text him. Absolutely not. Come on. Just something flirty. See what happens. Nothing would happen except me losing my job and dying of embarrassment. Bree had eventually let it drop, finished her wine, and left around 8 p.m. to meet up with other friends in Boston. Sophie had fully intended to go to bed early, sleep off the wine, wake up professional and appropriate. Instead, she'd poured another glass, just to finish the bottle, waste not, want not, and settled on her couch in her pajamas to watch a romantic comedy that was absolutely not helping her inappropriate feelings about her boss. By 9 p.m., Sophie was decidedly tipsy, not falling down drunk, but definitely past the point where her usual inhibitions were functioning properly. That's when her phone buzzed. Marco. Sophie, I need the Singapore contracts for tomorrow's meeting. Did you leave them on my desk? I don't see them. Sophie stared at her phone. Marco rarely texted her outside work hours. When he did, it was brief, professional, to the point. She should respond the same way. Professional, helpful, appropriate. Her fingers moved over the screen. Yes, left side of desk, blue folder. Perfect. Professional. She started to hit send, then stopped. Looked at the message, deleted it. The wine was making her brave. Or stupid. Probably stupid. But Bree's words echoed in her head. When's the last time you did something spontaneous? Sophie's fingers moved again, typing before she could think too hard about it. Come get me. She hit send before she could stop herself, then stared at her phone in horror. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. She just texted her boss, her Mafia boss. Come get me. At 9 p.m. on a Friday night while drunk in her pajamas. Panic set in. She tried to fix it. I mean the folder, LOL. No, wait, that was worse. Wait, no, I meant come get it. Worse. The folder is on your desk. I'm not at the office, I'm home. Stop typing, stop typing, stop typing. Why am I still typing? Sophie dropped her phone on the couch like it had burned her and buried her face in her hands. She'd just sent her boss 6 increasingly incoherent text messages, including, come get me, which could be interpreted as... Her phone buzzed. She peeked through her fingers. Marco. Stay there, I'm coming. Sophie's heart stopped. He was coming. Here. To her apartment. In 10 minutes, probably, based on how far away he lived. And she was drunk. In pajama shorts and an oversized t-shirt, with messy hair and no makeup, and 2 empty wine bottles on her counter. Oh God, Sophie said out loud to her empty apartment. What did I do? She jumped up, too fast. The room spun slightly, and looked around wildly. The wine bottles. She should hide the wine bottles. Except why would she hide them? She was an adult. Adults drank wine on Friday nights. Adults who weren't about to be visited by their very attractive, very intimidating bosses after sending them drunk text messages that could definitely be interpreted as something other than, please retrieve a folder from your desk. Sophie grabbed the bottles anyway, shoved them in the recycling bin, then reconsidered and pulled them back out. Hiding them was worse. It looked guilty. She left them on the counter and ran to the bathroom to look at herself in the mirror. Disaster. Complete disaster. Her hair was falling out of its ponytail. Her face was flushed from wine. She was wearing shorts that were definitely too short and a t-shirt that was falling off one shoulder. She tried to fix her hair. Gave up. Tried to smooth down the t-shirt. It just slipped off her shoulder again. Her phone buzzed. Marco. I'm downstairs. Which apartment? Oh God, oh God, oh God. Sophie texted back, 3B, then immediately regretted adding B instead of just 3B because that looked flirty and knocking. Firm, decisive knocking on her door. Sophie froze. He was here. Marco DeLuca was at her door because she'd drunk texted him, come get me, and he'd actually come. She could pretend not to be home. Ignore it. Claim she'd fallen asleep and hadn't heard. The knocking came again. Sophie, I know you're in there. Open the door. His voice through the door made her shiver. It was different than at work. Less professional. More... something. Sophie walked to the door on unsteady legs and opened it. Marco DeLuca stood in her hallway, and Sophie's brain short-circuited. She'd only ever seen him in suits. Perfect, expensive suits that made him look untouchable and intimidating. But right now, he was wearing jeans. Dark, well-fitted jeans. And a black Henley that did absolutely nothing to hide the fact that he was built like someone who did a lot more than sit behind a desk. He'd clearly left his house in a hurry. No jacket. Hair slightly messy like he'd run his hands through it. And he was looking at her with an expression Sophie had never seen before. Not professional, not polite. Something heated and intense that made her very aware of her pajama shorts and bare legs. Hi, Sophie said, because apparently that's what her wine-soaked brain came up with. Marco's mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Hi. You came. You texted me to come get you. So here I am. He leaned against the door frame, eyes scanning her in a way that made Sophie's skin warm. Nice pajamas. Sophie looked down at herself, then back up at him, face flaming. I wasn't expecting company. No? What were you expecting when you sent me 6 text messages asking me to come get you? I was trying to tell you about the folder. The folder that's on my desk, blue, left side. I remember. That's what the other 5 messages said. He stepped closer, and Sophie backed up instinctively, which meant he was now inside her apartment. But the first message, that one was different. I was drunk, Sophie blurted out. I am drunk. Present tense drunk. My friend Bree was here and we drank wine, and I'm not used to drinking, and then you texted about work, and I don't know what I was thinking. I'm so sorry. This is completely inappropriate. Sophie. Marco closed her door behind him, which suddenly made her small apartment feel very small indeed. Breathe. She breathed, or tried to. It was hard when he was standing there looking at her like that. You're not in trouble, he said quietly. I'm not here to fire you or lecture you about professional boundaries. Then why are you here? Because you asked me to come get you. He moved closer, and Sophie's back hit her kitchen counter. And I wanted to know why. I told you, I was drunk. You were drunk and you texted me. Specifically me. Not your friend Bree, not a cab, not anyone else. Me. His hand came up, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Why Sophie? The touch made her brain malfunction. I don't know. I think you do. Marco, you've been my assistant for 11 months. Perfect, professional, always appropriate. You never step out of line, never make mistakes, never let me see anything except competence and efficiency. His voice dropped lower. But tonight, drunk on your couch in pajamas, you texted me to come get you. And I drove across Boston in 10 minutes because I wanted to see what happens when Sophie Bennett stops being professional. Sophie's heart was hammering. Nothing happens. I'm always like this. Boring and quiet and... You're not boring. You're careful. There's a difference. His thumb traced along her jaw. But right now, you're not being careful. Right now, you're looking at me like you want something. Don't lie, Sophie. You're terrible at it. He smiled. You blush every time I stand too close at work. You get flustered when I compliment you. You find excuses to bring me coffee even though that's not part of your job. And tonight, drunk and honest, you told me to come get you. Sophie couldn't breathe. You noticed all that? I notice everything about you. He said it simply, like it was obvious. The question is, what do you want me to do about it? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. His other hand settled on her hip, thumb stroking through the thin material of her t-shirt. I came here because you asked. Because when you ask, Sophie, I come. But I need to know what you're asking for. The wine made her brave. Or stupid. What if I was asking for you? Marco's expression shifted, something dark and satisfied moving behind his eyes. Then I'd say it's about damn time. He kissed her. Not gentle, not asking permission. He kissed her like he'd been thinking about it for 11 months and was done waiting. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and Sophie made a sound she'd never made before. Something between a gasp and a moan that would have embarrassed her if she'd had the presence of mind to be embarrassed. But she didn't. All she had was sensation. The taste of him, whiskey and something darker, something that was purely Marco. The solid warmth of his body pressed against hers. One hand on her hip anchoring her in place, the other in her hair controlling the angle, the depth, the intensity of everything. The way he kissed her with complete confidence, like he knew exactly what he was doing and exactly what she needed. When he finally pulled back, Sophie was breathless and dizzy and completely certain that had nothing to do with the wine. Her lips felt swollen. Her heart was racing. Every nerve ending in her body was singing with awareness of him, his proximity, his warmth, the way he was looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "That," Marco said, voice rough, "is what happens when you ask me to come get you." Sophie stared at him, her carefully constructed professional shell completely shattered. She'd spent 11 months building walls between them, maintaining distance, being appropriate, and he'd just demolished all of it with a single kiss. "Oh," she managed. "Oh," he agreed. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make you eat something, drink water, and sober up. And tomorrow, when you're clear-headed, we're going to talk about this. About what it means that you texted me tonight. About what it means that I dropped everything to get here. What does it mean?" "It means I've been wanting to do that since about month 2 of you working for me. It means every time you bite your lip when you're concentrating, I think about kissing you. It means I've been professional and appropriate for 11 months because I didn't want to be your boss who crosses lines. But you texted me tonight, Sophie. You made the first move, so now we're going to figure out what comes next." Sophie's brain was having trouble processing. "You've wanted to kiss me since month 2. Since month 2, possibly earlier. You wore this blue dress to a client meeting and I stopped listening to the presentation entirely. That was 10 months ago. I'm aware. I've been very patient." He stepped back, giving her space she suddenly didn't want. "Now? Food? Do you have anything in this apartment besides wine?" Sophie blinked, trying to shift gears. Leftover Thai food? Perfect. You eat, drink water, and I'll make sure you don't do anything else drunk and inadvisable tonight." "Like what?" "Like texting me again, asking me to come back to bed with you." Sophie's face went nuclear. "I wasn't going to. You were thinking it, I can tell." But he was smiling, moving to her fridge with easy familiarity. "Sit down before you fall down. And for the record, when you ask me that question sober, the answer is yes." Sophie sat on her couch heavily, watching her boss, her very attractive boss, who'd just kissed her breathless, reheat her leftover pad thai like he belonged in her kitchen. This was insane. This was inappropriate. This was everything she'd never let herself want. And it had started because she'd drunk texted, "Come get me," and he'd actually come. Marco appeared with a plate of food and a large glass of water. "Eat. All of it. You're very bossy. You've worked for me for 11 months. You're just noticing this now?" Sophie took a bite of pad thai, watched him settle into her armchair like he'd sat there 1,000 times. "This is so weird." "Which part? The part where you drunk texted me? Or the part where I kissed you?" "Both. All of it. You're my boss." "At work, yes. Right now?" He gestured around her apartment. "Right now, I'm just a man who drove 10 minutes to get to you because you asked, and who's going to make sure you're okay before I leave." "You're leaving?" "After you eat, and I know you're safe. I'm not staying the night, Sophie. Not when you're drunk. When this happens." He looked at her with promise. "You're going to be completely sober and absolutely sure." "When? Not if. When? Because you texted me tonight. Because you've been looking at me with those big eyes for months. Because I've been waiting for you to give me a sign that you wanted this, and drunk or not. Tonight you did." He leaned forward. "So eat your food, drink your water, and tomorrow we'll talk about how we're going to handle this at work. Because I'm not going back to pretending I don't want you, Sophie. That ship sailed the moment I walked through your door." Sophie ate her pad thai in silence, her mind spinning. Marco DeLuca had kissed her. Had been wanting to kiss her for 10 months. Was sitting in her living room telling her that tomorrow they'd figure out what came next. This was the most spontaneous thing she'd ever done, and she couldn't bring herself to regret it. After she finished eating and drank 2 full glasses of water, Marco stood. "Okay, you're fed, hydrated, and you're going to go to sleep. I'll lock the door behind me." "You're leaving?" I'm leaving, because if I stay, I'm going to kiss you again. And I want you sober for what comes next. He moved to the door, then turned back. Sophie? Yeah? Tomorrow, we're having dinner. Real dinner, not takeout in your apartment. I'm picking you up at 7. Is that a date? That's absolutely a date. With your boss who you drunk texted and who really, really wants to see what happens when you're not hiding behind professional boundaries. I don't hide. You absolutely hide. But tonight I saw the real Sophie. The one who sends drunk texts and blushes when I look at her and wants me even though she's scared to admit it. He smiled. That's the Sophie I want to take to dinner. Think you can manage that? Sophie nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Now go to bed. And Sophie? He paused at the door. For the record, I'm really glad you drunk texted me tonight. Then he was gone, and Sophie was alone in her apartment with the lingering taste of his kiss, and the knowledge that everything had just changed. She looked at her phone on the couch, at the text thread that had started this whole thing. Come get me. He'd come. In 10 minutes, he'd dropped everything and come. And tomorrow, Sophie thought, as she headed to bed with a smile on her face, she was going to find out what happened next. When she was sober, and absolutely sure, except she was already sure, had been for 10 months and 3 weeks. She just needed wine and spontaneity to finally admit it. Sophie woke up Saturday morning with a mild headache, a very clear memory of last night, and a text message waiting on her phone. Marco. Good morning. How's the head? She stared at it for a full minute. Last night had really happened. She'd drunk texted her boss. He'd shown up. They'd kissed. He'd asked her to dinner. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on. Surprisingly okay. Embarrassed, but okay. His response was immediate. Don't be embarrassed. You were cute drunk. I rambled incoherently. Like I said, cute. Still on for dinner tonight? Sophie took a breath. Sober. Sophie could say no. Could claim it was the wine talking, go back to being professional, pretend it never happened. Except she didn't want to. Yes, 7. I'll pick you up at 6:30. Wear something you feel beautiful in. Sophie spent the entire day oscillating between excitement and panic. She cleaned her apartment obsessively, changed outfits 4 times, did her makeup, hated it, redid it. Tried on every dress she owned before settling on a simple black one that made her feel like an adult instead of a girl playing dress-up. At 6:25, her doorbell rang. Early. Of course he was early. Sophie opened the door to find Marco in a dark suit. Not the ones he wore to work, something different. More casual, but still devastatingly handsome. He was holding flowers. These are for you, he said, handing her a bouquet of peonies. Before you ask, yes, I know your favorite flowers because you have a picture of them on your desk. And before you overthink it, accepting flowers from me doesn't mean you owe me anything. It just means I wanted to bring you flowers. Sophie took them, her throat tight. Thank you. They're beautiful. You're beautiful. He said it simply, like it was fact. Ready? Let me just put these in water. Take your time. While Sophie arranged the flowers in a vase with shaking hands, Marco waited in her doorway, watching her with that intense focus that made her feel like the only person in the world. Okay, she said finally. Ready. The restaurant was intimate, a small Italian place in the North End that looked like it had been there for generations. The owner greeted Marco with familiarity, seated them at a corner table with candlelight and privacy. You come here often? Sophie asked after they'd ordered wine. My family's known the owner for 30 years. It's quiet, the food is incredible, and we won't be interrupted. He reached across the table, took her hand. I wanted somewhere we could actually talk. About last night? About everything. but we can start with last night if you want. Sophie took a sip of wine for courage. Just a sip. She was not repeating yesterday's mistake. I'm sorry for drunk texting you. I'm not. If you hadn't, we'd probably still be dancing around this for another 11 months. Dancing around what? The fact that I'm attracted to you. That I have been since you walked into my office for your interview wearing a blue dress and looking terrified. Sophie blinked. That was over a year ago. 13 months. But you were applying to be my assistant, and I'm not the kind of man who hires someone because they're attractive. So I hired you because you were brilliant and competent and exactly what I needed. The attraction was just something I dealt with. By being completely professional and never crossing any lines. Exactly. He squeezed her hand. Sophie, I need you to understand something. I have a reputation. People know what I do, what my business is. I'm not a safe choice for someone like you. Someone like me? Someone good. Someone who works hard and plays by the rules and deserves better than a man with blood on his hands. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to be honest. If we do this, if we cross this line, you need to know what you're getting into. I've worked for you for 11 months. I know who you are, Marco. I know the phone calls you take in Italian, the meetings that aren't on your calendar, the way people look at you with a mixture of respect and fear. I'm not naive, but you're not involved in it. As my assistant, you're separate from the dangerous parts. He stopped. As more than my assistant, that changes. As your what? Sophie asked quietly. Marco's thumb traced circles on her palm. As my girlfriend, as someone I'm dating, as someone who matters to me. Those are all things that make you a target, Sophie. That put you in danger just by association. And if I'm willing to accept that risk? Are you? Really? Because last night you were drunk and brave. Tonight you're sober. I need to know you understand what you're saying yes to. Sophie thought about it. Really thought about it. Not just the romance and the attraction, but the reality of who Marco DeLuca was. What his world looked like. What being part of it would mean. I'm not saying yes to being reckless, she said finally. I'm saying yes to dating you. To seeing where this goes. To not hiding how I feel anymore. She met his eyes. I've been terrified for 11 months. Terrified of my feelings. Of doing something wrong. Of wanting something I couldn't have. Last night the wine made me brave enough to ask for what I wanted. But I don't need wine to know I still want it sober. Marco's expression shifted. Relief and something deeper. You're sure? I'm sure I want to try. I'm sure I'm tired of being safe and careful all the time. I'm sure... She took a breath. I'm sure I've been a little bit in love with you since month 3, and I'd like to see what happens if I stop pretending otherwise. Month 3? You brought me coffee when I was stressed about the quarterly reports. You remembered I liked caramel macchiatos. It was a small thing, but it mattered. I remember... You smiled at me like I'd given you diamonds instead of coffee. Because no one pays attention to things like that. But you did. You always do. Their food arrived. Incredible Italian dishes that Sophie barely tasted because she was too focused on the man across from her, holding her hand like he was afraid she'd disappear. So, Marco said after they'd eaten. Ground rules. At work, we're professional. You're my assistant. I'm your boss. We don't blur those lines during business hours. Agreed. Outside of work, I want to take you on actual dates. I want to do this properly. Not hide it, but not flaunt it either. My family will know. There's no keeping secrets from my mother, but we don't advertise it to the entire company. That makes sense. And if at any point you're uncomfortable, if the danger feels like too much, if you change your mind, you tell me. No judgment, no hard feelings. I'd rather have you safe and not with me than in danger because you were too scared to speak up. Sophie squeezed his hand. I'll tell you. I promise. Good. He smiled. Now, let's talk about the important stuff. What's your favorite movie? What music do you listen to? What do you do when you're not being my perfect assistant? They talked through dessert and coffee. Sophie learned that Marco loved old westerns, that he ran 5 miles every morning, that he had a weakness for strawberry gelato, that he had 2 younger sisters who drove him crazy, a mother who called him every day, and a father who'd taught him the business from the ground up. Marco learned that Sophie read romance novels obsessively, that she stress-baked when anxious, that she'd wanted to be a librarian until college when she'd discovered she loved business administration, that her family was small, just her and her mom in Vermont, and that she'd moved to Boston specifically for grad school and stayed because she loved the city. Why did you apply to work for me? Marco asked. You had other offers, better offers probably. Your company interested me. The logistics, the international scope, and... She hesitated. And when I researched you, everyone said you were brilliant but demanding, that you had high standards and didn't tolerate mediocrity. I wanted to work for someone who'd challenge me. Did I? Every single day. She smiled. You make me better at my job. You notice details, you push for excellence, you never settle for good enough. It's intimidating and inspiring at the same time. You've never been just good enough, Sophie. From day one, you've been exceptional. They left the restaurant around 10, Marco's hand on the small of her back as they walked to his car. The night was cool, the North End streets quiet for a Saturday. Can I ask you something? Sophie said as they drove. Anything. Why didn't you ever say anything? If you've been attracted to me since my interview, why wait 11 months? Marco was quiet for a moment. Because I didn't want to be that boss, the one who hits on his assistant, who uses his position to pressure someone into something they don't want. I've seen men do that. I've seen how it ends. And I promised myself I wouldn't be that person. But last night you made the first move. Drunk or not, you texted me. You asked me to come. That changed everything, because it meant you wanted something too, even if you'd been too scared to say it sober. I'm saying it now, sober. I want this. He pulled up to her building, killed the engine, turned to face her. Then you have it. Me. This. Whatever comes next. Sophie unbuckled her seatbelt, moved closer. Can I kiss you? When I'm sober and sure? Marco's smile was slow and devastating. You can do whatever you want with me. She kissed him. Different than last night. Less desperate, more intentional. A promise instead of a surprise. His hand slid into her hair, and Sophie made a sound of contentment that made him smile against her mouth. When they pulled apart, both breathing harder, Marco touched her forehead to his. I should walk you up. You don't have to. I want to. Make sure you get inside safely. Very gentlemanly of you. I'm a lot of things, Sophie. Gentleman isn't usually one of them. But for you, I'm trying. He walked her to her door, hands in his pockets like he was restraining himself. Sophie unlocked her apartment, turned to face him. Thank you for tonight. For the flowers, the dinner, the conversation, all of it. Thank you for saying yes, for being brave. He kissed her forehead. Get some sleep. I'll see you Monday. Monday, Sophie repeated. Back to work. Back to professional. Nervous? A little. How do we act? At work? The same as always. Professional, competent, appropriate. But now I get to spend all day thinking about kissing you again. He smiled, which I've been doing for 11 months anyway, so not much changes there. After he left, Sophie leaned against her closed door and grinned like an idiot. She'd done it. The shyest person she knew had drunk texted her boss, gone on a date with him, and was now officially dating him. Bree was never going to let her hear the end of this. Monday morning arrived with Sophie's usual anxiety multiplied by 1,000. How did people date their bosses? How did you go from professional assistant to girlfriend and back again every day? She arrived at the office at 7:30 like always, made coffee like always, reviewed Marco's schedule like always. Everything was the same. Except when Marco walked in at 8, he smiled at her. Not his usual professional smile, but something warmer, more intimate. A smile that said he was remembering Saturday night. "Good morning, Sophie." "Good morning, Mr. DeLuca." His eyebrow rose slightly at the formal address, but he didn't comment. "Can you bring the Singapore files to my office? We need to review them before the 10 o'clock call." "Of course." She gathered the files, knocked on his office door, entered professionally. Marco was at his desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, looking unfairly attractive. "Close the door." Sophie closed it, suddenly nervous. "The files, put them on the desk." He stood, moved around to where she was standing. "You called me Mr. DeLuca. We're at work." "We are. And at work you've called me Marco for the past 11 months. Don't start changing things now." His hand touched her waist briefly. "Ground rules, remember? At work everything stays the same. That includes you calling me by my first name and not looking at me like you're scared I'm going to fire you." "I'm not scared you'll fire me." "Then what's with the nerves? I don't know how to do this. Be professional when all I can think about is Saturday night." Marco's smile was slow. "Good. That makes 2 of us. But we're adults, and we're professionals. So we're going to do our jobs, excel at them like we always do, and save everything else for after hours." He stepped back, giving her space. "Now, Singapore files. What do I need to know?" They worked for 2 hours, and it was exactly like it had always been. Sophie briefed him on contracts. Marco asked sharp questions. They strategized together. The only difference was the occasional moment when their hands would brush, or their eyes would meet, and Sophie would see heat behind his professional expression. It was simultaneously torturous and thrilling. At 10, Marco had his Singapore call. At noon, he had lunch with a client. At 2, he had meetings that ran long. Sophie handled calls, emails, scheduling, all the things she'd been doing for 11 months. And if she caught herself staring at his hands, or remembering what his mouth felt like on hers, or thinking about Saturday night instead of quarterly reports, well, she was only human. At 5:30, most of the office had cleared out. Sophie was finishing up some filing when Marco appeared in her doorway. "You still here?" "Just finishing up." "Leave it. You've been here since 7:30. That's long enough." Sophie saved her work, shut down her computer. "Anything else you need before I go?" "Yeah." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "I need to kiss you before I lose my mind from watching you be professional all day." Sophie's breath caught. "We're at the office. Everyone's gone, and I've been good all day. Very professional, very appropriate. But right now, I really need to kiss my girlfriend." The word girlfriend made Sophie's heart race. "Okay." He kissed her right there in her office, backing her against her desk, his hands in her hair. When he pulled away, they were both breathless. "Much better," Marco said. "That's been building all day. We have to work tomorrow too." "I know. It's going to be torture, but worth it." He helped her gather her things. "Dinner tomorrow night?" "I should probably go home and do laundry." "Laundry can wait. I can't." He smiled at her expression. "Unless you don't want to. No pressure, Sophie. If you need space." "I don't need space. I need—" She stopped, blushed. "What do you need?" "I need to stop being scared of wanting things. Of asking for things. So yes, Dinner tomorrow. And the day after that, if you'll ask. I'll ask every day if you'll say yes every day. They left together, and Sophie felt the shift. This wasn't her boss and his assistant leaving work. This was a couple, walking out together, his hand on her back, her smile matching his. In the parking garage, before they got into their separate cars, Marco pulled her close one more time. You did good today, staying professional, keeping boundaries. I know it wasn't easy. It was torture. Good torture or bad torture? Good torture, the kind that makes the after-hours stuff better. She touched his face. I like this. The balance. Professional at work. Real everywhere else. Me too. He kissed her forehead. Get home safe. Text me when you're inside. That's very protective of you. You're mine now. I'm protective of what's mine. He said it casually, but there was steel underneath. Text me. I will. Sophie drove home with a smile on her face, texted Marco the moment she was inside her apartment, and spent the evening thinking about how much her life had changed in 3 days. From shy assistant to girlfriend of a Mafia boss. All because she'd been drunk enough to text, "Come get me." And brave enough to mean it. 3 weeks into dating Marco DeLuca, Sophie was learning that being with him meant living in 2 worlds. At work, they were flawless. Professional, efficient, the perfect boss-assistant dynamic they'd always had. Marco barked orders, Sophie executed them perfectly. They strategized on deals, coordinated schedules, ran his business with the precision of a well-oiled machine. No one at the office suspected anything. Why would they? Sophie was the same quiet, competent assistant she'd always been. Marco was the same demanding, brilliant boss. Everything looked exactly as it always had. Except now, Sophie knew what Marco looked like when he smiled at her over dinner. Knew how his voice got softer when he called her late at night just to hear her voice. Knew the way his hands felt on her skin, the taste of his kiss, the sound he made when she touched him just right. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. You're distracted, Marco said one afternoon, 3 weeks in. They were alone in his office, reviewing contracts, and Sophie had read the same paragraph 4 times without absorbing anything. Sorry, I'm just thinking about Friday night. His smile was knowing. They'd gone to dinner at a restaurant in Cambridge, far from the North End where people knew him, and had talked for hours. About everything and nothing. About their childhoods and their dreams and the future neither of them were ready to name yet. Maybe. Good, me too. He stood, moved around his desk to where she sat. We have 10 minutes before my next meeting. Come here. Sophie stood, and he pulled her close, kissing her with the desperate efficiency of someone stealing moments. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. I hate that we have to hide this at work, he said quietly. We agreed. I know what we agreed. Professional at work, real everywhere else. But I don't like pretending you're just my assistant when you're so much more than that. What am I? He touched her face gently. You're everything I didn't know I needed. You're the reason I actually want to come to work instead of just showing up out of obligation. He stopped, smiled. You're mine, and I'm not good at pretending otherwise. We don't have to hide forever, just until what? Until we're sure this is serious? He pulled her closer. Sophie, I've been sure since Friday night. Hell, I've been sure since the first time you smiled at me. I'm not questioning this, are you? No, but other people will. They'll say I'm sleeping with my boss to get ahead, or that you're taking advantage of your position, or... Let them say it. I don't care what people think. I care. I care about my reputation, about being taken seriously. If everyone knows, everything changes. Marco was quiet for a moment. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm being selfish. This is your career too. and I don't want to mess that up because I can't keep my hands off you for 8 hours a day. It's not just you, it's me too. I want... She stopped, flushed. What do you want? I want everyone to know you're mine. I want to not have to pretend I'm just your assistant. But I also know that's not realistic. Not yet. Not when we work together. So what do? We keep being professional at work, and we figure out the rest as we go. His next meeting interrupted them, and Sophie returned to her desk trying to look composed while her mind raced. She was falling for Marco DeLuca, hard, and it scared her how much she wanted this to work. That night, Sophie's phone rang around 11. Marco, calling from his car. "Hey," she answered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just finished a meeting that ran late. Wanted to hear your voice before I went home to an empty apartment and thought about how much I'd rather be with you." Sophie smiled despite the late hour. Smooth talker. Honest talker. Big difference. A pause. "Can I come over? I know it's late, but yes, come over." He was there in 15 minutes, looking tired and rumpled and perfect. Sophie let him in and he pulled her into a hug immediately. "Long day?" she asked. "Long week, but better now." They settled on her couch with wine. Just one glass each. They'd learned their lesson about excessive drinking and talked about nothing important. Work gossip, Netflix shows, the weird noise Sophie's refrigerator kept making. "I like this," Marco said after a while. "Just being here. No pressure, no performance. Just us." "Me too." "Sophie?" His tone shifted, more serious. "Yeah? I need to tell you something. About the business. About what I actually do." Sophie's heart kicked. They'd been dancing around this for weeks. The careful non-answers, the vague business interests, the phone calls he took in another room. "Okay. You know what I am. What my family is. You're not stupid, and I've never insulted you by pretending otherwise. But there are specifics you don't know. Things that, if you knew them, you might feel differently about me. Try me." Marco was quiet for a long moment. "My family runs a lot of legitimate business. The shipping company, real estate, some restaurants. That's all real, all legal, all above board. But we also have other interests. Import, export. That doesn't always follow legal channels. Protection for local businesses. Enforcement when people don't pay their debts. The kind of work that keeps lawyers busy and law enforcement interested. You're telling me you're in the Mafia. I'm telling you my family has deep roots in organized crime going back 3 generations, and I took over the Boston operations when my father retired 5 years ago. I've tried to move us more legitimate, clean up some of the rougher edges, but there are still parts of the business that exist in gray areas, or very dark areas." Sophie processed this. "Have you ever killed anyone?" The direct question made him flinch slightly. "Yes, in self-defense, and in defense of my family. I'm not a murderer, Sophie, but I'm also not innocent. And if I stay with you, I'm part of that world. By association, yes. People will know you're important to me. That makes you valuable as leverage. It also makes you untouchable because anyone who hurts you would have to answer to me, and no one wants that. But it does mean you're never completely safe. Not the way you were before." Sophie looked at him. This man who'd kissed her breathless, who brought her flowers, who called late at night just to hear her voice, who was also, apparently, exactly what everyone had warned her about. "Are you telling me this because you want me to leave?" "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know what you're getting into. Because I care about you too much to let you walk into this blind." His hand found hers. "But no, Sophie. I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay. I want to wake up next to you and fall asleep with you and spend every day proving that what we have is worth the risk. But that's selfish. and you need to make your own choice. I already made my choice. 3 weeks ago when I said yes to dinner. Again when I said yes every day after that. This is different. This is knowing the details instead of just suspecting. Marco. Sophie turned to face him fully. I worked for you for 11 months. I'm not naive. I knew there was more to your business than shipping manifests and quarterly reports. I knew you were dangerous. I knew the world you existed in. And I still drunk texted you to come get me. I still said yes to dating you. I still fell for you knowing exactly who you are. You don't know exactly who I am. Then tell me. Not the business stuff. Tell me who you are. The real you. Marco looked at her for a long moment. I'm someone who takes care of the people who matter to him. I'm loyal to a fault. I have a temper I work hard to control. I believe in keeping my word and protecting my family. I drink too much coffee and not enough water. I hate mornings, but I run anyway because my father taught me discipline matters. I'm not good at talking about feelings, but I'm trying to be better at it for you. And I'm falling in love with my shy assistant who drunk texted me 3 weeks ago and changed my entire life. Sophie's breath caught. You're falling in love with me? I'm pretty far past falling, actually. I'm solidly in love with you. Have been for a while. Just wasn't sure when to say it. How about now? Now works. He pulled her into his lap. I love you, Sophie Bennett. Completely. Possibly since month 3 when I brought you coffee and you smiled at me like I'd brought you the moon. Definitely since you drunk texted me and I drove across Boston like my life depended on getting to you. I love you too. She said it quietly but with certainty. I was terrified of it. Terrified of wanting something this much. But I love you. Mafia business and all. He kissed her then, deep and sure and perfect. And when he pulled back, his smile was the kind Sophie wanted to spend her life earning. Stay tonight, he said. No pressure for anything except falling asleep next to me and waking up together. Okay. They fell asleep on Sophie's couch, tangled together, and Sophie thought about how 3 weeks ago she'd been too scared to even admit she was attracted to him. Now she was in love with him. And somehow, that felt exactly right. 4 months into dating Marco, Sophie's life had transformed in ways she was still processing. She'd met his family, a massive, loud, overwhelming Italian family that had welcomed her with open arms and too much food. His mother had cried and hugged her and declared her perfect for my son. His sisters had interrogated her thoroughly and apparently approved. His father had looked at her with knowing eyes and said, "You're good for him. He smiles more." She'd moved some clothes into his apartment. Officially, she still had her own place, but practically she spent most nights at his. They'd fallen into a routine of morning coffee together, professional distance at work, and evenings that ranged from quiet dinners to events where Sophie learned to navigate the complex world of Boston's Italian community. She'd also learned that dating a Mafia boss meant accepting security. Marco's driver picked her up some mornings. There was a guy who watched her apartment building. Her phone had been upgraded to something with better security features that Marco had installed himself. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like being valued, like mattering to someone who took protecting what was his very seriously. "You're smiling," Marco said one morning over coffee in his kitchen. They'd been up late the night before, a charity gala where Sophie had worn a dress that made Marco's eyes go dark, and were enjoying a lazy Saturday morning. Just thinking about how much has changed. Good changes? The best changes. 4 months ago, I was too scared to even talk to you outside of work emails. Now I'm drinking coffee in your kitchen wearing your shirt. You wear my shirts better than I do. That's not true. It's absolutely true. You in my clothes is my new favorite thing. He pulled her into his lap. Well, second favorite. First favorite is you out of my clothes, but that's a given. Sophie laughed, blushing. You're terrible. You love it. I love you. There's a difference. Is there? I'm not sure. But he was smiling, that soft expression he got when it was just them. Sophie? Yeah? Move in with me. For real. Give up your apartment, bring all your stuff, make this official. Sophie's heart raced. That's a big step. I know. But we're already living together in practice. You're here 6 nights a week. Your toothbrush is in my bathroom. Half my closet is your clothes. Let's just make it official. What about work? People will notice if I move in with you. Then we tell them we're together. Make it official there too. Sophie, I'm tired of hiding this. I want everyone to know you're mine. They'll talk. Let them talk. You're brilliant at your job. You earned your position through competence and skill, not because you're sleeping with the boss. Anyone who says otherwise can answer to me. Sophie looked at him. This man who'd gone from her intimidating boss to her everything, who made her feel brave and valued and loved. Okay, I'll move in. Okay, we can tell people at work. Okay to all of it. She kissed him. Because you're right, I'm tired of hiding. I want everyone to know I'm yours. And that I'm yours. That's the important part. He stood, pulling her with him. Come on, let's go get breakfast and then we're starting on moving your stuff today. Today? Marco, I haven't even given notice on my apartment. So we give notice today. Pay out your lease if we have to. I want you here. Officially. No more back and forth. They spent the weekend moving Sophie's things. Marco insisted on hiring movers, but Sophie insisted on packing her own boxes. His apartment slowly filled with her stuff. Her books on his shelves, her dishes in his kitchen, her presents in every room. Monday morning, they arrived at work together. That alone was enough to raise eyebrows. At 9 a.m., Marco called a meeting with the senior staff. Sophie stood beside him, professional, but no longer hiding. I wanted to let everyone know that Sophie and I are in a relationship, Marco said without preamble. It's serious, it's not affecting our work, and anyone who has a problem with it can bring it to me directly. Sophie earned her position through excellence, and she continues to excel every single day. That doesn't change. What changes is that I'm no longer pretending she's just my assistant. Any questions? Silence. Then his COO, a man named Frank who'd worked with Marco for 15 years, smiled. About damn time. We've been running a pool on when you'd finally make a move. I had October, so I win. The tension broke. People laughed. A few offered congratulations. And just like that, it was done. Sophie was no longer hiding. She was officially Marco DeLuca's girlfriend, and officially living with him, and officially completely, happily in love. That night, in their shared apartment, Marco pulled her close. How do you feel? About today? About everyone knowing? Terrified, relieved, happy. Sophie looked up at him. Ready for whatever comes next. Good, because what comes next is this. He pulled out a small box. Sophie's heart stopped. Marco, relax. It's not a ring. Not yet. He opened the box to reveal a key on a delicate chain. This is a key to everything. My apartment, my office, my car. Everything I have is yours. And when I'm ready to give you a ring, which will be soon, just so you know, you'll already have access to all of it anyway. Sophie took the necklace with shaking hands. This is very symbolic. This is very honest. I love you. I want you to have access to everything. No locked doors, no secrets. Just us. I love you too. So much. She let him fasten the necklace around her neck. And for the record, I'll say yes, when you're ready to ask. I'm already sure. How sure? As sure as I was when I drunk texted you to come get me and you actually came. As sure as I was when I said yes to dinner. As sure as I am right now, standing in our apartment, wearing your key around my neck." She smiled. "Completely, absolutely sure." "Good." He kissed her softly. "Because you're stuck with me now. I'm not letting you go. Promise?" "Promise." Epilogue. 1 year later. Sophie walked into Marco's office with his morning espresso and the quarterly reports he'd requested. Everything was exactly as it had been 2 years ago when she'd first started working for him. Except everything was completely different. "Your coffee," she said, setting it on his desk. "Thank you." He stood, moved around the desk to kiss her. Not professional, not appropriate, but theirs. "How's your morning?" "Busy. Your mother called twice about the engagement party. Apparently the florist is giving her problems. She'll handle it. She always does." His hand settled on her hip. "How are you feeling?" "Good. Morning sickness is getting better." "Good." He kissed her forehead, then dropped to one knee and spoke to her still flat stomach. "Hear that? Your mother says you're behaving better. Keep it up." Sophie laughed. "You're ridiculous." "I'm going to be a father. I'm allowed to be ridiculous." He stood, pulled her close. "Can you believe it's been a year since you moved in? Can you believe it's been a year since I drunk texted you?" "Best text I ever got." He kissed her, soft and sure. "You know what would have happened if you hadn't. We'd probably still be dancing around each other, being professional." "Exactly. So I'm grateful for wine and bad decisions and shy assistants who get brave when they're drunk. I'm grateful for bosses who drop everything and drive across Boston when their assistants need them. Always. That's the deal. You text, 'Come get me,' I come, no matter what." He touched the ring on her finger, an emerald surrounded by diamonds, his grandmother's ring that he'd given her 6 months ago. "That's what this means. Forever coming when you call. Even when I'm being irrational about baby names? Especially then. Though for the record, I still think Salvatore is a perfectly good name." "Your father's name? Really? Family tradition." They argued about baby names for 10 minutes before Marco had to take a call, and Sophie returned to her desk, smiling. She was engaged to her boss, pregnant with his baby, living in their apartment with their dog and their life and their future. All because one night, drunk on wine and courage, she'd texted, "Come get me." And he'd come. In 10 minutes, he'd dropped everything and come. And he'd been coming ever since, to her apartment, to her life, to her heart. Sophie touched the key necklace she still wore alongside her engagement ring. She'd been terrified to want him, terrified to ask for what she needed. But she'd asked, and he'd answered, every single time, and would keep answering for the rest of their lives. Because when Sophie Bennett asked Marco DeLuca to come get her, he came, always.